Hey, what's up there? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I've got an absolutely fantastic lineup for you of data and my own thoughts on the crypto market, and specifically whether or not I think that this rally can continue. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to share this video. So Bitcoin over the last 7 days has been up almost 14%. It has been almost a meteoric rise for Bitcoin. And the reason for that, I'm going to actually explain here in a little bit. But Ethereum also up about 12% over the last 7 days. Even the other altcoins here, XRP up almost 10%, BNB up 5%. Solana coming in at over 21% in the last 7 days is just nuts. And then, of course, Cardano coming in at 44% over the last 7 days. We're starting to see almost like a mini altcoin season going on right now. Bitcoin moves higher, and then the rest of the alts, they do tend to move a little bit after that. And you start to see some significant buying pressure for a lot of these altcoins. In fact, if you take a look at the crypto market cap total, what we can see here is that we have a large increase, over almost a 2% increase in the total crypto market cap. That's including Bitcoin and all the altcoins. And we're sitting at about $1.6 trillion. Okay, if we back this out and take a look at the all-time, we can see here that we are basically back where we were about May or so of 2022. Okay, so we're kind of all the way back up again now. This is just absolutely insane, honestly, because we're seeing just such incredible strength. We're seeing strength with alts. We're seeing strength in stable coins. We're seeing strength in DeFi. It's just strength everywhere you can turn. And quite frankly, this the reason for this has largely been because of optimism regarding Bitcoin spot ETF. If we take a look at our Bitcoin chart TA, I actually have the weekly out here. And so you can see that the past almost, let's see, we count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight weeks of nothing but green buying volume, man. 8 straight weeks of nothing but buying for Bitcoin. This has probably been one of the most insane runs I've ever seen Bitcoin take. Now, this is actually kind of similar to something that you would see at the start of a bull market. Like, for instance, if you put this up against the bull market of 2021, what you can see here is that bull market, you had a large increase in the Bitcoin price and about 7-8 weeks or so of just straight buying volume here and pushing Bitcoin even higher. So if you take a look at the RSI, now normally it would go all the way up here to almost 100. It went up to about 94 or so on the weekly during that huge pump back in January of 2021, and we're at about 83 right now, currently for the last week or so. And so the primary question here of, do I think this rally can continue? I do think this rally can continue, at least for a little bit longer, at least for the short term. Now, Bitcoin's kind of fizzled out a little bit here at about 44,200, around that region, maybe a little bit higher, 41,000. We'll call that 44,300 or so. That's probably where I'd put some fairly strong resistance, or 44,200. Now, that being said, Bitcoin is also very heavily overbought. So we said RSI on the weekly is 83. That means that this is the most overbought Bitcoin has been since the bull market run of 2021. So we're seeing significant strength for Bitcoin right now. I do think that in the near term, it's entirely possible that we could run all the way up to about 46,700. That's where I have this current top resistance line here. Now, Bitcoin does need to pull back at some point. Even during the large run-up that we had in 2021, it did take a breather for a little while. It went all the way up here to 94, and then it came all the way back down again. It went from a high of about 41,000 and then went all the way down to about 30,000. So it's entirely possible that we can see something similar, a similar move like that, in which Bitcoin kind of takes a little bit of a breather and then continues the rally much higher. And I do think that that's probably your likely scenario. I could definitely see Bitcoin trying to break out here at about 46,000, 47,000 and failing, and then coming all the way down here. Maybe we can retrace some of this support possibly all the way back down to kind of where we started here to maybe about like 34,000 or so. Now, this would be something very interesting. I would definitely be very interested in buying Bitcoin if it did come back into this region here at about, say, about 34,000 or so. I'd definitely dip buy a little bit there myself, and anticipation of it actually moving much higher. But if it does continue to dip, I think that's also a nice buying opportunity for myself. Maybe even come down to potentially 30K. I mean, that's always a possibility, but I think it's much more likely that it will at least pull back here to about, call that about 37, 38,000 or so, and then continue much higher, just kind of like what we did over here back on 2021. So TLDR, we could move up to 47K, but then I do think that there's going to be a very strong dip for Bitcoin coming in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, basically the short term for Bitcoin. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is what's going on in the futures market for Bitcoin. If we take a look at our futures contracts, we can see here that traders are still very bullish. Obviously, they have majority of longs. They have significant numbers of short liquidations that happened on the 4th and the 5th of December. That kind of propelled the price even higher. And again, those kind of propelled the price from about 40,000 to about 44,000. And we're just seeing shorts get completely wrecked right now when it comes to Bitcoin. It's like basically like stepping in front of a moving train. This train's, going about 45 miles an hour, and these shorts are stepping in front of it, and they're just getting run over. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. It's pushing higher. We're seeing a nice little short squeeze. And if we take a look at our current liquidation levels, we can see that this massive liquidation level that I pointed out before, here at about 44,500, that got all taken up. This whole area, this whole big yellow area was taken up. And if we look a little bit higher than that, what we can see here is about 45,000 or so. You have about 150 million. And kind of in that region, if you do get above 45,000, we can see some serious liquidations above that point. We're talking about 150 million here, 178 million here, about 125 million here. So we could see 300, 400 million dollars worth of short liquidations if it pushes all the way up here to about even 45,000. That's where the shorts have parked themselves there. That is their line in the sand for defending that resistance. So if Bitcoin can pop just a little bit more, we could see another epic short squeeze, and I do think that could propel us all the way up to 47K in the short term. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the long versus the short-term supply. Now, the long-term supply continues to increase even as the price continues to go up. Now we have a situation where the long-term supply is actually at 85% of total Bitcoin supply, right? So if you guys remember, the past couple of weeks we've been seeing it tick up very slightly. It's been from 83 to 84, now to 85%, and that is an all-time high for the amount of Bitcoin that's held for at least 155 days. I also want to go ahead and draw attention to the traditional finance community and traditional finance traders trying to get into Bitcoin. Since there's no spot ETF, they have to rely on Bitcoin futures. If you go over here and take a look at the Bitcoin, the CME group, and take a look at their volume and open interest, we can see that over the past week, especially on the 4th and 5th of December, we had a larger than normal amount of volume for those days. So we're starting to attract a large amount of traditional institutional attention when it comes to Bitcoin. They're going in, they're buying these Bitcoin futures ETFs, and the CME group is providing, is basically buying those Bitcoin futures. So we're seeing a large increase in the number of contracts being opened, and on top of that, we're seeing a large amount of volume over those past couple of days, and institutional investors are getting their feet into the water right now. I also want to take a look at the Bitcoin miners reserve, because I think this is really important right now, because we've seen before in the past when Bitcoin tends to spike, when the price tends to go up, you do also tend to see the miners selling during that time. And so this time is no different. If you take a look at our Bitcoin miners reserve, we can see here that about December or so, or just late November, we saw the Bitcoin price spike from about 38,600 all the way up to about 44,000. And we saw the miners reserve take a dramatic drop. So the number of coins that miners are holding in their wallets, it took a dramatic drop, and it went down significantly to a low here at about the 6th or so of December. Miners are cashing in with this latest rally, and they are selling into the rally like you wouldn't believe, okay? So at the start of that rally, let's say they had about 1.8 million, 39,500, and where we are right now is about 1.8 million, 35,000, about 174. So what you're looking at is probably a difference of about 500 or 600 Bitcoin or so. They've sold that much from their wallets in that time, that very short time span of about a week they have been selling. Now, if you take a look at the exchange reserve, the number of coins on the exchange, you can see that it continues to go lower and lower and lower. However, we've seen a spike up the past couple of days. This could be largely attributed to the number of miners that are also selling as well, and some traders that are taking short-term profits. Okay. And the other thing I want to talk about is very important. Every single time Bitcoin tends to spike up in the price, we also see a large jump in the fees. Okay, so if you take a look at the fees per transaction, the mean of the US in US dollars, what we can see here is that, again, from the 1st out to the 5th, where it spiked, it went all the way from about $5.77 per transaction, now all the way up to about $27.50. Okay, so that's a pretty large increase in the number, in the amount of fees being paid on the blockchain. This right here is something people are paying attention to, something you should be aware of in case you're moving your Bitcoin. You might want to wait a little bit until a little bit later, or pick a lower priority speed, because right now we're looking at a top of $27 or so. Right now it's sitting about 16, which is still very high. If we take a look at the yearly here, we can see that that this kind of blows everything else out of the water. And in order to find anything that's even close to this high when it comes to fees, you have to find that weird little spike we had back in May, or go all the way back to 2021, and that's basically the same time that you see such enormous transaction fees being paid by the users of the blockchain. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the economic calendar for next week. All right, Monday, we have nothing scheduled. Tuesday, CPI numbers are going to come out Tuesday. Okay, so Consumer Price Index. This is going to be incredibly important. I'm expecting, as well as the market here, expecting a lower print year over year from last year. The expectation is it's going to come in at 3% versus 3.2% for the last month, and the core CPI is going to remain the same according to this. But I do think that we're going to wind up seeing a lower CPI. We've seen oil move lower. We've seen commodity prices move lower, and so we should see a little bit of relief here. We may even get a two-handle. If we get a two-handle, 2.9%, the market's going to go crazy. We're going to see a huge rally on Tuesday if we get that two-handle. Now, Wednesday, you have PPI. PPI, the Producer Price Index, also very important. That's going to move the market. And on top of that, on Wednesday, you also have the FOMC interest rate decision. So Jerome Powell and the Fed are going to have a CPI and a PPI in order to decide what they're going to do. And I honestly think they're just going to stand pat. They're not going to add to the Fed funds rate. They're going to stay where they are, okay? And that is also going to propel the market higher, because the market is basically pricing in cuts at this point, and they're not pricing in any more rate hikes, which the Fed shouldn't, because the inflation has been going down over the past couple of months. Now, Thursday, they have jobless claims, and Friday, we have industrial production and capacity utilization. Not some big events going on Friday, but the biggest events are going to be Tuesday and Wednesday, just so make sure you guys are aware that those are the days that you're going to see the most volatility when it comes to Bitcoin and the traditional markets. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think. Have you been buying into this rally? Have you been selling into this rally? Have you been holding? I have not bought. I have not sold. I am still holding my Bitcoin, and I tend to continue to hold my Bitcoin until we approach the all-time high at the very least. Let me know what you guys are doing, and I will catch you guys in the next video.